A grave warning has been issued by Mark Rutte, NATO's new chief. He believes the world could soon face a major conflict on two fronts, Europe and Asia. Rutte's words matter. He leads the world's most powerful military alliance. When he talks about the risk of World War III, leaders pay attention. His warning is not casual, it's based on intelligence and current events. Rutte points to Russia and China, suggesting they might coordinate aggressive actions. Imagine Russia attacking in Europe while China moves on Taiwan. This would stretch global defenses to the breaking point. The world hasn't seen such a threat since the last World War. Rutte's message is a call to action. Prepare for the worst-case scenario. He highlights the dangers of a new alignment between Russia and China. The timing is critical. Tensions are already high. The war in Ukraine drags on, and China grows more assertive toward Taiwan. Rutte sees these as connected, not isolated events. He believes Putin and Xi might see an opportunity to challenge the current world order. By acting together, they could create chaos that the US and its allies would struggle to contain. This is not about panic, but realism. Leaders like Rutte have access to sensitive information and must anticipate threats. His warning is a crucial heads-up for governments and citizens. It underscores how fragile peace really is. The world has enjoyed decades without a major war between great powers. Rutte warns this era could end if we're not vigilant. His words remind us, peace isn't automatic. It must be actively protected. The stakes have never been higher. The nightmare for military planners is a two-front war. Rutte warns, Russia could escalate in Europe, perhaps attacking a NATO member like Estonia or Poland. Such an attack would trigger NATO's collective defense, Article 5. At the same time, China could move on Taiwan, aiming for reunification by force. A Chinese invasion would be massive, drawing in US forces and allies in the Pacific. The US and its partners would be forced to fight two major wars at once, dividing resources and attention. Fighting Russia in Europe is daunting. Fighting China in Asia is equally so. Doing both simultaneously would test the limits of American power and alliance resolve. Russia and China might see this as their best chance, forcing the West to make impossible choices. Should the US focus on Europe or Asia? There may not be enough forces for both. One front could be left dangerously exposed. Putin and Xi might believe only a coordinated assault can overcome US military superiority. It's a calculated gamble to reshape the global balance of power. The logic is clear. Divide and overwhelm the West. This scenario is why NATO and its allies are on high alert. The stakes are global. The war in Ukraine is a brutal example of modern conflict. Russia's 2022 invasion was meant to be swift, but Ukrainian resistance, backed by the West, turned it into a grinding war of attrition. Both sides suffer heavy losses. Cities are destroyed, millions displaced. It's the largest land war in Europe since World War II. Russia's tactics, artillery, missiles, drones, are closely watched by military experts. The front lines stretch for hundreds of miles, with trench warfare reminiscent of World War I. Modern warfare here is a mix of high-tech weapons and brutal close combat. Russia has shifted to a long war strategy, focusing on wearing down Ukraine. Its economy is on a war footing, churning out weapons and ammunition. Ukraine relies heavily on Western aid. Delays have real consequences on the battlefield. Ammunition shortages are common. This war is a warning. A Russian attack elsewhere in Europe would be devastating. Civilian infrastructure would be targeted, and a massive refugee crisis would follow. Ukraine is now a testing ground for new weapons and tactics. The conflict shows Russia's willingness to use force for political goals. What's happening in Ukraine previews the threat NATO faces on its eastern border. The lessons are clear. Modern wars are destructive, unpredictable, and global in impact. The world is watching and preparing. The stakes extend far beyond Ukraine. This is the new face of warfare. China and Russia's partnership has deepened dramatically. Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin call it a no-limits partnership, more than symbolic, less than a formal alliance. They share a vision challenging US dominance and reshaping the world order. Their cooperation includes joint military exercises, naval patrols, and bomber flights near US allies. This isn't just for show, it builds real military coordination. China hasn't sent weapons to Russia for Ukraine, but it provides crucial economic support, buying oil, and selling dual-use technology. China's main interest, Taiwan. Its military is modernizing rapidly, with advanced missiles and a growing navy. Regular Chinese military activity near Taiwan is meant to intimidate and wear down defenses. By partnering with Russia, China gains a powerful ally on the world stage. If China attacks Taiwan, Russia could create distractions in Europe, dividing US attention. The partnership doesn't need to be formal, opportunism is enough. If the US is busy in Asia, Russia might move in Europe, and vice versa. This dragon and bear partnership is central to the two-front war scenario. Western leaders are alarmed. A crisis in one region could trigger another. Europe's security is now directly linked to Asia's. The world's balance of power is shifting. The risk of coordinated aggression is real. The stakes are global. The alliance between Russia and China is a game-changer. NATO is responding to these threats with its biggest reinforcement since the Cold War. Member countries are boosting defense spending, buying new equipment, and improving readiness. The message to Russia: NATO will defend every inch of its territory. NATO has increased its military presence in Eastern Europe, deploying multinational battle groups in the Baltics and Poland. These forces act as a tripwire. An attack on them means a collective NATO response. The alliance is updating war plans, assigning specific units to defend key areas and practicing rapid reinforcement. Large-scale exercises like Steadfast Defender test NATO's ability to move forces quickly across continents. NATO has expanded. Finland and Sweden have joined, strengthening the alliance in Northern Europe. Their membership makes it harder for Russia to operate in the Baltic Sea. The US is also deepening security ties in Asia with Japan, South Korea, and Australia to counter China. Strengthening alliances is central to deterrence. The West is preparing for any scenario. Readiness and unity are the new watchwords. The alliance is adapting to a dangerous world. The stakes demand nothing less. Moscow tells a different story. Russian officials deny plans to attack NATO, calling the alliance's expansion a threat to their security. They argue NATO broke promises not to expand eastward and see troop deployments near their borders as hostile. Putin insists Russia doesn't want war with NATO, calling Western warnings paranoia. Russian leaders claim their actions, including in Ukraine, are defensive, protecting Russian speakers and countering NATO influence. The partnership with China is framed as normal, not a military bloc. Moscow accuses the US of creating global divisions and a new Cold War mentality. Russia sees itself as balancing American dominance, not seeking conflict. This perspective shapes their actions and the risks of miscalculation. If Russia and China launched simultaneous attacks, the consequences would be catastrophic. The world would face a global conflict involving nuclear powers. Military casualties would soar, civilian casualties would soar, cities could be destroyed, refugee crises would erupt on two continents, the global economy would collapse, trade halted, markets crashed. The US and allies would be stretched to the limit, fighting on multiple fronts. Logistical challenges would be immense, with resources divided and supply lines under threat. The risk of nuclear escalation would be the highest since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Even a single tactical nuclear weapon could spiral into all-out nuclear war. The international system would shatter, replaced by hostile blocs. Cooperation on global issues would vanish. The interconnected world would fracture into suspicion and conflict. Even without nuclear war, the world would be changed forever. The stakes, the survival of civilization itself, this is the ultimate danger of great power conflict. Some analysts argue a two-front war is unlikely. Russia's military is weakened by the Ukraine war. Rebuilding could take years. China's invasion of Taiwan would be risky and complex, facing strong resistance and likely US intervention. The Russia-China partnership is more convenience than true alliance. Their interests may diverge. China's economy depends on global trade. A major war would be disastrous for Beijing. NATO's overwhelming military strength remains a powerful deterrent. Russian and Chinese leaders know the catastrophic risks of direct war with NATO. Rational actors avoid self-destruction. While the world is tense, a coordinated World War III remains a worst-case scenario. Caution is needed, but not panic. The threat is real, but not inevitable. Preventing disaster requires strength and strategy. NATO must maintain credible deterrence, well-trained, well-equipped forces ready to respond. Supporting Ukraine sends a message aggression won't be rewarded. Open communication is vital. Even during crises, leaders must keep talking. Military-to-military channels help prevent accidents from escalating. Economic resilience matters. Democracies must reduce dependence on authoritarian regimes for critical supplies. This means building secure supply chains and prioritizing security. Alliances like NATO and partnerships in Asia must be nurtured. Democracies must stand united, coordinating policies and presenting a united front. Unity is the greatest strength against aggression. By supporting international law and principled diplomacy, the world can avoid catastrophe. The goal: prevent a new world war.